Good morning, and welcome to another flamboyant version of Diatribes from the Voice of Doom. Now here's your flabbergasted and flummoxed host, Voice of Doom. Alright, look who's back. After being gone for about 10 days, I don't know where the hell she goes or how she sustains herself, but she leaves the house, and I figure she's gone for good, and then 10 days later she comes back, hat in hand, looking for some food and a warm place to sleep. So now I got two cats bugging the hell out of me. But I didn't want to talk about anything particularly important, just the existential thread of our existence. And I really don't have a lot to say about that. I've been watching YouTube and not the geopolitical turmoil we're in, but just social mores and just the pitiful state of education and how the generations have degenerated. And I think it's pretty obvious because there's people, I guess there are people who don't know the even basic information that it takes to live on this planet. All they know is they're young and they have reasonably nubile bodies, so they can simply advertise and display their bodies on the internet and make lots of money. And that's how they exist. Which is good for them. I'm fine with that if that's what they want to do. I have a bit of a problem with using, their sexuality as a means of sustenance, but if you can do it, then do it. And whatever happens, happens. Once you get older and people don't want to look at your sagging breasts and your wrinkles, then I don't know what you do, but it's just very interesting because they're falling into the trap that's been set by the elitist overlords, who I guess never die. I don't know what they are. There's some very, very, very old people running the show that never die. And I don't understand how that happens. But they go on and they create unrest and they create division. And it's obvious everywhere. I mean, I'm going to go back to this old hackneyed subject of the transgender phenomena. But there's people that go on the internet who may or may not be transgendered. They think they are, and they're afraid for their lives. What can I do? How can I leave? Should I leave America? Where can I go? They hate me. Everybody hates me. Well, the reason they hate you is because you fell into the trap of the elitists who want to pit one person against the other. Best way to get rid of 90% of the people on this planet is to turn everybody against each other. So obvious. Saw one transgender person who looked very much like a woman, and other than her voice, could pass as a woman and probably could get a job somewhere, and they're afraid for their lives. And then there's another person who says they're transgendered, who looks like a man with long hair, and they say, I'm a woman. And that's fine, you can say whatever you want to, but they miss the point. They're not authentic. They want to jump onto the bandwagon of the fact that they may be gay, and so since they are gay, they must be the opposite sex, so just say you're the opposite sex. Well, you don't look like a woman, and you're not going to pass as a woman, and nobody's going to treat you as a woman because they look at you and people perceive what they perceive. And it's very hard to twist your mind around, if you're a sentient human being, to say, yes, I will, call you this or that. A true transsexual, is what they used to call them, wants to pass, and many of them do, and some pass with flying colors. And so just leave it at that. If everything was left alone, then more people would be mainstreamed into society. It was already happening. But there's evil forces out there, Soros, and people of that nature, who want to pit one person against the other, and then they take things to an illogical extreme and say, well, if you're 6 years old and you say you're a girl, then let's kidnap you from your parents and do surgery on you so that you can be your true, authentic self. I'm not going to go into how evil that is because, things have a tendency to work out. And I think you should wait to a certain age before you make any drastic decisions, because you may regret it later. And there's other things happening as far as pitting one person against the other. And it all has to do with the existential presence of Orangey, and how he got turned into this threat to mankind, or humankind, or they kind, is beyond me. And I think it has to do with the fact that we've lived in a society where insanity reigns, and we just get used to the fact that the government's corrupt, and certain people get the benefit of that corruption and certain people don't. But it's not good when everyone's pitted against each other. I've watched a few things about how certain cultures are being usurped or being infiltrated by other cultures. And a lot of times the people on the right fall into the same trap. And they make themselves out to be racist or rabid nationalists, where, we don't want certain things coming into our country. Watch some stuff on Ireland where the Irish have their culture, and they were fighting for years against British rule. They were fighting for years against each other. Protestants against Catholics, whatever. And when that finally settles down, then they get a whole influx of immigrants. And now they're all jumping up and down because these immigrants are doing their prayers or doing their dances. I don't see anything wrong with that on its face. There's nothing wrong with, adhering to your religion and doing your rituals in another country. But then when people start saying we don't want this and we want this country to be all this or all that, or we want our cultural, integrity, then, you have unrest. And eventually it's going to come to blows. Now, let's go on to other subjects that have to do with unrest. They are developing artificial intelligence on an exponential level. And what I heard today on YouTube is that AI can do coding much faster than a human being. And by faster, I mean what used to take a couple years for a human being to do, AI can do in like 10 or 15 seconds. Now, if you extrapolate that and say, somebody has to figure out how to make the AI until AI can evolve on its own, then we're doomed. But the fact of the matter is that many of these specialty high-end careers are going to go by the wayside. I spent 6 years in college to learn how to code these very intricate software programs. Now all I have to do is type in, make me a program that does this, and AI will code it for you. So there's no need for you. And it seems like they can almost do that with almost anything. They can have AI do coding. They can have AI, maintain our defense. And they can have robots do work in warehouses. They can have robots in Amazon, which will be much more efficient than a human being. It's very obvious. I mean, they probably already have it going on. You order something, the robot goes to the shelf, picks it off the shelf, puts it on the conveyor belt, and everything goes on. Another robot puts it in a box, and another robot sends it off, and maybe a robot will drive that self-same product to its various locations. So a lot of jobs are going to go by the wayside, and the only job that may not go by the wayside is the job I do, which is restaurant service. Because you may have robots doing that maybe in 10 or 15 years, but for now, no. You need a human being to go up to a table and take an order and enter that order and take the food to the person. Because people want human contact, and I don't know if they're going to be real keen on having a robot come up to their table. But eventually the robot will be very good looking, it will be very sexy and very efficient, and that will be that. So the question is what to do when there's no jobs for humans. How do humans subsist? And different people have different levels of subsistence. I have a very humble abode, but I still have to come up with $3,000 a month in order to have a decent standard of living. And if no one has a job, then how do you dole out the resources in order to keep people alive and living in a house? We're not going to be able to do it. People want different levels according to their, work. If one person works very hard in engineering or building a bridge, then they deserve $250,000 a year because they have the skills to put a bridge up that carries cars across it. And another person maybe waits on tables, and they make enough money to be able to live in a house. Okay, but what happens when all those jobs go by the wayside? How do you decide who's going to live and how they're going to live? So I'm actually very surprised that we haven't had a major event happen in the last few months that call the unnecessary humans from this earth, because there's not just 360 million Americans who have to live and have to work, but there's 8 billion people on this planet that have to live and have to work. And they travel from place to place and migrate in order to live on the streets or live in a shelter, and never can, get into the society because they're not allowed to. And so they turn to crime, and so everybody's stealing from each other. And crime is absolutely ridiculous. People are stealing with impunity, and other people are becoming victims. And the insurance companies pay until they're bankrupt. So I don't know what's going to happen. I don't see good things. But I think the only logical thing is for the elitists to get rid of millions of people, perhaps billions, probably billions, to make this planet habitable by the people that are left over. And so I'm a little bit scared. I look at YouTube all day long and I don't see anything good happening. And when people try to solve these problems, they are stymied simply because of their political affiliation, or if they ally themselves with Orangey. Now, I don't know what made Orangey this big bad boogeyman, where if you even talk to him, you're considered the enemy. But I'm glad to see that a lot of these people who are burning down cars are being taken to the docket, and I hope that they go to prison and they're going to realize that they had it really good and they shouldn't have done what they did, because these snowflake lefty wokesters are not going to do well in prison. And I don't condone the infrastructure of the prisons where the lunatics have taken over the asylum and people just do whatever they want. They're in big trouble and they're not going to survive. But they made their bed, now let them sleep in it. So I'm a little bit scared. I like what Orangey's doing, but the more he does things, the more he's putting himself in jeopardy. He is stepping on the toes of the big boys. Morgan, whatever, and Chase, Manhattan, and Bank of America, and all these other places, by ferreting out corruption. And so we'll see what happens. It's not going to be good. But we're plodding along, and maybe we'll somehow survive, but I just don't see anything good happening from any of this. So I didn't say anything today, but I just wanted to do a diatribe because I'm bored. I don't think I'm going to get any work today. And my new job doesn't start for another couple of weeks, so I'll probably end up just languishing in my own misery. But if worse comes to worse, and maybe all of us have no jobs, at least I have certain skills that can keep me occupied and keep me amused. If I want to, I can write songs, or if I want to, I can play songs, or if I want to, I can read or study and get ready for my next life. But I'll just leave it there. I didn't say anything. I'm sorry, but it's just I'm worried about our existence and our standard of living. So, something to think about. I don't know. Nobody will watch this. So, have a good day and try to keep a stiff upper lip. Goodbye.